with good food and better ale. Her father is known to all as the English priest, although he speaks the common tongue as well as any Frank, and hasn't performed the rites nor worn the stole since before her birth. But he hails from Wessex, and came to the continent in the missionary footsteps of his slain countryman St. Boniface, so the English priest he will always be. On nights he forgets she is there, the daughter can hear tales of her father's early days in Francia. For almost 3 decades he travelled this land finding souls for God and King Charles, saving generations of Saxon babes from lives spent worshipping rocks and afterlives of eternal torment. He rode ahead of Charles's army, blessing whole towns that had warning from gore-splattered refugees of what was coming. On occasion, he was barely in time, the soldiers' sweat already watering the ground on which the pagans fell to their knees and begged for baptism. Not all accepted the proffered gift, preferring the sword to salvation. Even those her godly father did his best for, praying for their eternal souls as their bodies bled out. By Charles's death in 814, the work was all but finished. Most villages the English priest passed through welcomed him and asked not only for a blessing, but also for advice on raising a church of their own, on sacraments and saint days, on the rights and wrongs of proper Christian living. Though now and then he came upon people who held to the old ways, he found their reluctance easily shifted once he assured them they could still have their festivals and rituals, so long as they used the rightful Christian names and replaced their idols with a simple cross. In one of these still pagan places, he saved the soul of the woman who would soon bear his child. Whether the saving happened before or after he lay on her was unclear. Given the exalted way in which the men at table talk about rutting, it may well have been during. Her mother was an extraordinary beauty, a fact never mentioned around that table, only in the market and churchyard in order to lament that the child takes after her father, both of them pale and thin as discarded hay. And so nobody much blamed the English priest for swiving her. There would be no retribution or bloodshed so long as he arranged a generous gift to the wounded family and went on his way. Perhaps even an annual stipend, given how valuable a marriage prospect he had ravaged. He refused, instead putting her in the back of his cart and driving to the nearest church to marry her himself. Despite abandoning his calling, the English priest was awarded a fine house in the centre of Mainz by the Archbishop in thanks for his service. And it must be said, the 37 Karlspfund of mysteriously acquired gold and silver he donated to the see. He had barely begun to enjoy his new wife and home before he received heavenly punishment in the form of an infant, tearing out with such haste and violence that the mother was dead before the priest had made it to the end of the street to call for some women to assist. Once, when the English priest was absent from the table, a man whispered that the cross around the dead wife's neck had a pagan symbol engraved on the side she wore against her skin. It were a hammer, someone said. No, said another, a likeness of the heathen tree that blessed Boniface felled. In any case, it was known that the woman washing the body for burial turned the cross in her hands and was burnt. It was known, too, that the assisting girl replaced the polluted cross around the corpse's throat, and for allowing such a thing to enter consecrated ground, her own throat closed over, and she never spoke again. Later, the child asked her father if it were true her mother died unsaved. He clapped her head with both hands, so her ears rang, and said it was a sin to listen to the gossip of fishwives. She did not tell him it was the gossip of the town's best and wisest men, lest he rip her ears clean off her head. What she knows. The child is named Agnes after the saint who was once a girl who became a young woman who was burnt at the stake and stabbed in the throat for refusing the men who wished to lie on her. The child asked once if it might have been better for this woman to have lain under the men and then gotten up afterwards and still been alive. Her father did smile, but said she mustn't say such things. The saints' lives were provided as holy instruction, and so by definition there was no better way to live. And die